All in favor? That's unanimous, Melissa. All right. Then let me welcome our guests and say thank you for being here, and we'll turn it over to citizen comments. Welcome, Charlie. I'm sorry. Oh no, I was just listening to the fabulous baby. So I'm a future Jackson student, perhaps. Okay. Not hearing any unseen emotions in the audience. I just want to make sure that okay. Then why don't we turn it over to? Do you want to do yours first? Sure. So that
That'd be great. So I have Sam Davis here, our art teacher, who's just going to do a brief presentation of our art program. Okay, good.
Thank you for the patience with my kiddos. My other ones are outside playing. Yeah. All right. Let's fire up. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sam Davis. This is my first year here, and I previously taught at high school in Down East Maine, and I taught at Mollyauket for 5 years, and then I took a break to be home with my kids, and then I saw this opportunity to work close to home at a small school 1 day a week, and I was like, that is perfect. So it's been an awesome year. I figured what I would do is just touch on some things from the website. I've been doing regular updates on here throughout the year. And I think that's kind of the best way to capture what's been happening in the art class here at Jackson. So I'm going to kind of click around, I'll point out a few things, and then if anyone has any questions, I'm obviously happy to answer. So something that I do in the art classroom is I focus on the studio habits of mind. This was developed as it's called Project Zero through Harvard University, where each of these areas is broken down and described in fuller detail, but I figured this kind of quick little snapshot was a great way to just touch on it for today. So students in the art class have opportunities to do all these things: stretch and explore, express themselves, develop craft, envision ideas, understand the art community, observe detail, observe ideas from other people, engage and persist, and reflect on their work. And I just want to say one thing that I've been super amazed and impressed with our students is the engagement and persistence in their work. My previous experience teaching art over 7 years, I have not seen this kind of engagement and persistence with other classes that I've had. These kids, they pick ideas, they stick with them, they try new things, they really dig deep, and I've just been blown away. So I wanted to at least mention that about the kiddos. Just a quick little snapshot. I do choice-based art. So you can see around the room artwork from the UA show from a couple weeks ago. So students sometimes have a project that is directed where I, give a specific assignment. Like you'll see around the room, there's a lot of solar eclipse chalk art. That was something where I was like, I could not help myself. It was a very exciting event, and I gave them a very specific assignment. Here's how you make this, and everybody followed the steps. And then each kid kind of added their own little touch. Like you'll see, there's some UFOs and stars in some of them. But for the most part, what I tend to do is do a demonstration of a specific media or technique, and then the kids can pick their subject matter, they can pick how they apply those techniques in their art, which is why all the students have very different looking artwork. They have sketchbooks they can work out of, and then there's artwork displays right up the hall here and in the JGS hallway. So on the website, I just kind of take a picture of the display and write a little bit about what was going on for that particular week or artwork. All right, so how's my son doing over there? I think we're paying more attention to him. Sorry. That's good. I'm nervous. All right, so I have a page for each class. So it just has a date and like just an image. I figured for families that would actually check the website, it would be just like a quick, easy way to see what's happening in the art room. So we just, some highlights from the year. So drawing explorations. This particular class, essentially what happened was I showed the students a really wide range of art media to work with and showed them a few techniques. And then they just basically played with the materials and tested them out and tried different tools to make different marks. And then the next class, they dug in a little bit deeper and really tried to hone some skills. So they explored first, then they're practicing, and then they go into what we call sometimes a wow piece, which is a wonderful original work of art. It kind of gives the kids that indication, this is not like, you're not just testing things out, you're not just playing with the materials, you're really saying, oh, I really liked how the oil pastels worked with this graffito technique. So I'm gonna do something a little bit more detailed. Yeah, we're not gonna go right to the outlet. So they can, that's where, again, you can see around the room, the end products are very different. Some kids wanted to do chalk pastels. Other kids are all about pencil. They don't want to ever do any color in their work. That was me. And they really get a chance to dive into something that interests them. That's kind of the process for different art media, like same thing with watercolor or printmaking, ceramics. So ceramics, it was the same idea. They got to play with the clay, then they got introduced to techniques, they got to practice, and then they chose what they wanted to make. We've done a variety of both 2D and 3D art. Our students love sculpture. That was something that, especially with the 5th and 6th grade, they really got into the sculptures. I don't know if any of you saw them at the UA show, but the excitement coming into the room was very rewarding for me. There was a lot of like energy and buzz, especially when there's like a lot of sculpture materials available to the kids. So each class, I have again these snapshots. Each kid designed their own name tag for their art for the UA show, which they really liked doing. And I'll just skip over here, just to show you some other materials that were used. We did printmaking, collage, all the grades did clay, jelly plate printmaking, which is a very expressive art. You don't have to worry as much about being precise. So some kids really enjoy that form of art because it's very approachable and you can have really successful results without overthinking things, without it taking a really long time. Whereas we have other students that they make art in their free time all the time, and you can see these really detailed art pieces here, where there's a little bit more focus on maybe being realistic. And then I'll just do a quick little. 1, 2, 3, 4. With this particular group, and also with K2, we did animal drawings. This past week, we had the early release, so I didn't have 5, 6, but I had each student pick a photograph of an animal, and they really got excited about picking whatever animal they wanted, and then we talked about how do you block in those shapes, and how do you think about positive, negative space. Here's some different drawing tools that you can use. So this was a more directed project where I told them you're going to draw an animal, but there's a lot of choice within that. So I think for me, I've tried a lot of different models of art education, whereas, you know, here's the end product. You're gonna all have a watercolor sunset that's gonna have a tree silhouette, and you're gonna have the moon, and, you know, sometimes the students really thrive with that sort of art, but I've had a lot more success with providing a lot of choice for the kids. And it seems to work really well with our students. And then lastly, yeah, I just have some images from the UA show here, but I'll skip over to art news. Something I started to do the second half of the school year is a weekly art class newsletter. So this goes home to families, thanks to Miss Susan. So I do like a little personal note, and then what each class is working on. The studio habit of mine is something I've been throwing in there as well, just the one we're focusing on that particular week, with some pictures, and then what's coming up next in the following class. And here's another example from last week, where the students picked their animal photograph and then they worked on creating a life drawing. I think that will be pretty much cover it. Does anyone have any questions about anything in the art program? Okay, thank you. Mike?
Thank you.
It's perfect timing inside of having an art show and having your child be completely entranced by art. It all came together really, really well.
Okay, so we'll continue on another presentation we're going to have. We originally were going to have Victoria Hill here tonight to talk about middle school math, but we'll still be talking about middle school math. We've got Dr. Chef here to do that for us. So welcome.
Sure. I don't know if there were specific questions, but I can give kind of an overview of where we're at with math and all of us being math.
Actually, let's get a little bit more specific, because there's a reason we had Victoria here. So let me just back up for 1 second. The reason Victoria was coming here, if it's okay with you, was she had reached out. She was looking. She had a couple of middle school families approach her in her role as family advocate about the exciting possibility of a middle school math class next year for those students who are ready for algebra. John Allen, the current long-term substitute in Barton Middle School, had expressed the desire to teach a single class for algebra students, which would be obviously an incredible benefit for students, according to those who know about math and Victoria and others. So at the moment, middle school students use VLAX in order to take algebra as 8th graders, which they attend from the library without staff to support their learning. So I know some of us have had students go through the school. Perhaps what you could do is just give us a brief sort of snapshot of what has happened with math at Bartlett and your understanding of what is actually happening over there, because I think what she was looking for was for us to get an understanding of the situation so that if there was support needed, and also for us to understand, right? I mean, this aligns with our strategic plan, so we definitely want to make sure that we're doing the best we can for our students with math. So, and other board members want to jump in by all means.
Yeah, and I can certainly, if the overview I give is, more specific information that you'd like later, I'm happy to do a more in-depth presentation. But the way it stands right now, just as kind of an overview backstory here, is that for the first time ever in all of SA9, we have a very coherent and comprehensive K-12 math program. So I don't believe that's ever happened in our entire SAU until now. So it's called illustrative math. It's very rigorous, it's very coherent, and it's very intentional about where big conceptual concepts in math map to one another over the course of an entire K-12 trajectory. So last year, and then certainly across the board this year, everyone is implementing illustrative math. So right off the bat, that increases the rigor as compared to what has been used in the past for every single student. We recognize that math achievement in all of our districts, but in the entire SAU was lacking. And so that was the catalyst behind really making a change that increased rigor. With that said, currently what's happening with our 8th graders who are on a more accelerated track, which is I think what you're asking specifically about tonight, is that 8th graders entering the high school, depending on which school you're coming from, have a very different experience. So currently our 8th graders at Kennett Middle School received the entire 8th grade illustrative math curriculum and then began Algebra 1 curriculum using illustrative math, which is also what's being taught for freshmen at the high school. They're using the Algebra 1 illustrative math curriculum because it's aligned and coherent, and for all the reasons I just mentioned, aligned with what's happening in K-8. So Bartlett, it's my understanding Bartlett students who are on that more of an accelerated track, as you mentioned, Jess, are doing VLAX with the support of a math teacher outside of their time in that program. It's also my understanding that they've not received the core 8th grade content. So what we're looking to do, in fact, we just had a meeting about this today with high school math representation and Kevin Carpenter and both Katie Bedley, who will be the Kennett Middle School principal next year, Rick Boucher, current Kennett Middle School principal, and Juliana from Bartlett, is really trying to create a plan to ensure that our students, regardless of which school they're entering high school from, have the same experience in math, K-8, but also are able to access an accelerated track should they be ready, without risking omission of really important core content. And so what we find, or what research, and there's a tremendous amount of research that I could share, is that the most important mathematical concepts that are necessary for success in later high school years and even in post-secondary pursuits are taught at the 6 through 9, sometimes 5 through 9 grade level. And so when we omit content within that really important span of grades, we don't often see where those gaps show up with students until much later on in their career, whether it be when they go to take an advanced course in high school, or a lot of the research suggests beyond high school. So what we're hoping to do moving forward is ensure that all students' rigor is definitely increased. We're hearing teachers say that every day. But that students who are more inclined for an accelerated track through math curriculum receive that really important core foundational experience, and are still offered an accelerated track that they can pursue to set them up for success later on in their high school career. So we do have a plan in the works for our current 8th grade students going to the high school. And as I said, they're coming from very different experiences. One has had illustrative math, which is what will be used in the high school. Another school hasn't. And so we have a plan to address where those gaps may lie for those incoming freshmen next year. And we also have a plan moving forward, or developing a plan moving forward for our current 7th graders who might want to pursue a more accelerated track through math. But really, really, really being careful that acceleration doesn't equal omission of really important concepts. And that our teachers are not just trying to get through core content for the sake of coverage, and that students are going far deeper with really important concepts than they have in the past. So that's kind of the current status of where things are at the moment. But we do have plans in the works to address both of those pieces coming up for our incoming 8th graders, which won't have an impact necessarily in the high school this coming fall. It'll be the next following year. But a lot of what illustrative math provides our students, again, it's so coherent and so aligned that they're in high schools that have implemented this over several years and are tracking data. There's less need for courses like trigonometry. So a lot of those core concepts are embedded into the core illustrative math curriculum, which allows high schools to provide students with a far more in-depth and accelerated and specialized track through math as they get up into the higher grades.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah, happy to answer any questions, or provide more information later on.
Yeah, Amy, thank you for the description of the curriculum. My understanding of the question really had more to do with the teaching. So, as you know, the 7th graders don't currently have a full-time math teacher. They lost their full-time math teacher a couple of months into the school year. And so the concern, I think, that was raised, the way I interpreted the email, hearing it for the first time, was a question about, not about does the SAU have a curriculum that they feel good about, but do they have a plan for a person to teach the kids and implement that curriculum?
So we have a plan to address 8th graders going to 9th grade for sure. And a part of that comes from our work with Michigan Math Science Learning Network that we're partnering with right now. And part of that piece for those 8th graders going to that accelerated track into the high school is kind of creating a patch of curriculum that addresses where some of those gaps may lie or some of those experience different, between this school coming with this level of experience in that school. So we've got a plan for those guys. For the 7th graders who, as you've noted, have had a kind of disjointed experience along the way, the plan will be for them to take the 8th grade illustrative math curriculum as 8th graders, as everyone does, and for those that are ready to pursue a more accelerated track with the integration of algebra concepts, with a plan to follow up on that when they enter as freshmen, so they can still get algebra credits, all of the things that we still know are important for that group of kids who are on that accelerated track, but ensuring that they have to have good teaching, right? They can't just learn this on their own, certainly not with the curriculum that we've adopted. It's rigorous, it's comprehensive, it requires a longer block of instructional time. All of those things we're working to address with those kiddos, and to certainly close any gaps that might have surfaced as a result of just the unfortunate situation that they've been placed in. So all of that is in the works, but I'm feeling good about the alignment across the SAU, which up until this point we've not had. I feel like we've kind of, at least looking somewhat outside looking into these other buildings, kind of piecemeal things together here and there to address the needs, where this approach is far more structured and aligned, and it's ensuring that all students have equal access to really rigorous instruction.
James, if I understand your question, you're kind of asking more about the staffing issue as well.
Yeah, I think
so I don't know whether Amy can answer that or not, but at the joint meeting last week, that Joe Young was talking about the staffing issue. If I heard correctly, it looks like I think they've come to an agreement with the person to fill that position full time. It just hasn't been solidified yet entirely.
They were very fortunate to get a retired math teacher certified, John Allen, came in and picked up. So that was a good thing. I'm not sure that moving forward he's interested in full-time employment. He is currently in that role. They are advertising for that position. There have been a couple of other conversations about offering extra tutoring for students or some type of level of support for those students moving forward. But very fortunate to have Mr. Allen step up and give his community, as Jackson did. He cares about the kids, so he did everyone a favor for that.
And Amy,
So that's something that's still being decided this summer.
Yeah, probably over the next month or so.
Okay.
But they are advertising currently for a full-time
Okay.
math teacher.
And as people have asked me about this, oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
As people have asked me about this, one thing that I could use a little guidance on is, it seems to me that this is a little bit of a complicated jurisdictional question, right? Because we have the SAU helping out, and then we have Bartlett School and Bartlett School Board and their, infrastructure, but also, obviously, there are Jackson families that have an interest. And so I wonder if either of you could say a few words about how Jackson can most productively engage in this conversation as the decisions are being made, but also be in the loop to hear about the outcome of the conversations when they finish.
So there are always opportunities. One was Jerry did show up for the, I think,
I couldn't make it, but I did talk
but
to
Jerry was there. Those are open meetings for both Jackson and Bartlett to get together, even though somebody may be assigned to it. The school board meetings are generally open meetings. They're very willing to hear what you have to say as well. So if there are concerns that Jackson has, that would be a forum to bring it up. And just giving a call to the principal. I know years past, Joe Bosi had a nice relationship with the Jackson board as well. So you can absolutely advocate, not only at the middle school level, but even at the high school level. Those are important pieces for you to keep in mind. There are built-in mechanisms, like I said, the joint board meetings and some of those pieces. So they're very receptive. As Amy said, Dr. Frechette said, getting the quality teachers in place is critical. It's critical here, it's critical in every place, because that can make up for a lot of deficits in this piece. So that's their focus right now.
Well, thank you all for that. And I think that's all very good advice. I know this one, Amy, you were put sort of on the spot, being switched in at the last minute, which I know you jumped into willingly. One, I would like to thank Victoria Hill for sort of bringing it to the board, because there were a number of parents that also brought it to us through me. So this wasn't just a one note from Victoria. I think she really was trying to advocate for families. And I think it was hopefully, eye-opening to kind of even know that these discussions are happening. I know also for myself, I've got about 6 or 7 more questions, no shock, right? But I don't want to take up time here. So if we have questions that we might want to get answered, maybe at a later meeting, because I don't want to take up tonight's time, who should we address them to? Because
Yeah, and then I can help.
And then I just figured those out.
okay, so I'll
Yeah,
say,
there's sorry.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to present more of a picture of what this looks like. There's a lot of great, quick, easy read publications around, all of these things that we're talking about, with building the conceptual, understanding, kind of how IM is structured. That's something people want more information about. And then again, even timing's not great, because just today we met to begin to develop a plan. So certainly once things become more solid, I'm happy to come back and give more information about what that looks like moving forward, but feeling pretty good about it. And it's just awesome to be in a SAU where everybody's also, I'm happy to put their heads together and troubleshoot some things we want to fix or make better.
so one thing I will ask is, you noted that several plans are in the works. When you have those plans, could you come back and tell us what those plans are without us asking you? Could you just come and share them? Because I think we'll definitely welcome a presentation to say, okay, we've identified, you guys have identified issues, you're doing your best to make plans, which I'm very appreciative of. If you can make sure to come back and say, okay, here are the plans for what's happening, so that we can know what's going on. And that way you're not surprised.
No worries.
Here we
You can
go.
always ask.
Thank you.
But I don't know anyone else.
Yeah. So when Principal Yaga last week explained to, was that this week? No, what's that? guys probably have no idea what that is anymore. Your description, it made me understand things a little bit better, and I find it kind of exciting and reassuring at the same time, about the idea of not letting those pieces fall through the cracks. Each individual kid's pieces fall through the cracks, so it's like, not only for the kids that are in the accelerator program, I find reassuring that you want to make sure that they're not losing important pieces along the way. And I noticed that was something that Joanne was talking about last week, and I didn't follow quite as well as what you explained it now, so I do appreciate you kind of clearing that up for me better. So just to me, it really makes sense to be worried about how, because if you don't know how to do fractions, then it doesn't matter whether you're trying to figure out algebra or not. And it's good to know that that's, to me, but that's where the focus is right now, to make sure that kids learn the important building blocks to be able to do the higher levels of math.
And obviously for those in the audience or reading minutes or things like that, we would welcome if you have questions, obviously, to move forward because we're representatives of you. So thank you for being very much, Dr. Fischette. Okay, we're ready to move on? Super. Okay, old business, committee assignments. Excuse me, does anyone have any?
Can we just move them to next month after we have the full board? I make a motion to table that.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Great, so then we'll move forward, hopefully.
Yes.
All right, all in favor of that? Great. Okay, instructional issues.
We just talked about that.
Okay. Super, okay. Anything else? Okay. Consider personnel actions. The election of Kathleen Maynard as school nurse.
Make a motion for the election of Kathleen Maynard as school nurse.
How do you second?
Okay, all in favor?
Well, we had just talked about that there was a credentialing piece that needed to happen first. How's that? We're good? Great.
We're good.
Thank you.
Okay, good question. All in favor? Okay, business affairs, FYIs.
Yep, so in your packet, you do have the budget status report. So this is the time of year that we take a look really at the bottom line to see where we're at. And you guys are in good shape. Jackson School District is in good shape. There were no surprises. You didn't have any big maintenance pieces. Staffing wise, we did have a couple of vacancies, which always shows up. We won't have the total end of the year. You know, our books close. The fiscal year for schools begins on July 1st and ends June 30th. So we will not be expending any more monies for this year after June 30th. That doesn't mean all the bills will have been paid, but in one thing, just for new board members, when you look at that budget status report, you will see things like an encumbrance. Okay, so what that means is it's almost like we are taking that money and we're securing it because we know we have to pay that. So for example, Erin's salary is what it is. And we know that, God love her, she's going to be here until June 30th, and we're going to pay her. So that money will be encumbered. At this time of year, we try to not just spend money for the sake of spending money, but for example, you'll have a promotion ceremony that's out here. So there's a certain amount of money, the magic that Susan Braun's parent does, right? And gets the flowers and the food and all of those things. So that will be encumbered. What will not be encumbered is just miscellaneous supplies, those type of things. So we try to slow down that spending and make sure that we're spending it on what was originally budgeted. So the books close June 30th. We collect all the bills. It usually takes the whole month of July. And then in August, you'll get what is the fund balance in real time. So as I said, from that standpoint, you're in pretty good shape. I know the last couple of years, it's things happen and you change and you get a little bit closer, but we keep an eye on that throughout the year. Are there any questions on the budget status report? Okay, we'll roll right into the next item, which is what's called the program assurances. So you get federal monies, they're entitlement grants, so you have Title I, Title II, Title III, IV. You get, the rural schools REAP money. So basically, this document that takes over for about 28 pages says that if we're going to take this federal money, then we need to follow all the regulations related to it. Non-discriminatory statements, if things were over $20,000, go to bid on those. Making sure that things are done properly all the way through. So these are assurances. I sign my name to these, and then occasionally we get audited. So for example, a Title I audit, we've seen people who may come in, and we said, okay, we bought 12 iPads for students. Well, when we purchased those iPads with Title I dollars, there's a little sticker that goes on the back side of these iPads. And they say they were bought with Title I funds, so we have an inventory control system. So every once in a while, somebody from the state will come up and they will look for those items. Say, where are those 12 iPads? They'll take a look at all of the timesheets to make sure that, okay, did these Title I dollars in these monies go directly to the students? And so that's what all of these assurances are. So that's an FYI for you folks. And then the last thing under business affairs is a grant tracking form. So one of the things that you as a board should know about is if people are applying for different grants. And this grant was...
It's a grant to the Rotary for $1,000 to help them with the playground bill that Victoria Bell has submitted.
So sometimes the boards, you folks are really gracious and trusting of that, but you want to make sure that you're informed so that you aren't obligating yourself for future monies and future bills as well. So that's in there as well. And I think that's it for business affairs.
Just a quick question to that point. The other thing that was on my mind, besides making sure we're not obligating ourselves for future expenditures, was also making sure that it's not covered. You're not needing money that we're not providing. So it's for the playground, just to confirm that.
The $1,000 is for playground.
Yeah, okay, great.
I don't know if you have any questions under business affairs.
Okay. All right, let's roll right on to administrator's reports. You're doing so great. Let's just
I'll fill the airwaves here. So there are a few things. Obviously, we're getting to the end of the year. Lots of celebrations all over the place, but there's also a lot of work that has to be done. So our students are undergoing a lot of statewide assessments at the elementary, middle, and at the high school level. That comes out in the report card, the SU9 report card, right? We take a big focus on the growth targets. I think those are extremely important. And we've done very well with those. So we take a look at that. They'll do NWEA testing, which is, you're probably stealing your thunder here, but we're there. And that gives a historical, longitudinal impact of where students are. So that's going, and that's really important. A couple of other pieces that I think I want to talk to you folks about is it is hiring season. And in Jackson, it's been hiring season for quite a while. We're struggling with employees, and one of the pieces that I think is important in that, I have a request for you, just because it gives me a little bit more latitude. In some places, you have collective bargaining agreements, right? So you have unions. Jackson's not big enough, but Bartlett and Conway have unions, and you have to follow those pieces, and you can't break those in any way, shape, or form. In Jackson, we have a series of personnel policies. So we go through this process each year of taking a look and go through the personnel committee to adjust salaries. We do comparative analysis. Sometimes we folks have created a hiring bonus for people. All really good things. One of the areas that we're really struggling with is that maintenance position. And it's been advertised since about November. And, with the best laid plans, we adjusted that salary scale to where we thought we would be very competitive. We aren't competitive enough because that position is still open. But as a superintendent, I'm bound by these policies. So one of the things I would request is for you to suspend that policy for the purposes of allowing me to negotiate with whoever it is that comes in reasonable, to get somebody on board. The staff has been stressed, they've been, and I'm not saying stressed this way, but just their time, and they've stepped up, but it's time for us to get somebody on board that can handle. There are some big projects coming up with security and some maintenance pieces that really need to be addressed, as well as some custodial duties. So that's my request to you folks is if you would, because I can't break the policy, but you can suspend it and allow me to do that. So I don't know if you want to discuss
So
that.
Kevin, to clarify, you could then negotiate it and come back for our approval.
Oh, I just would recommend it.
Yes.
And I'm not going to hire somebody
Yeah.
at $200,000.
No, but it's not the.
Although I am retired, so I have an awesome set of tools.
But it's the, so it's, it would be come back to us, so.
Yes. It would be a recommendation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yep. Good question. Anyone else? No. So, are there any motions that anyone would like to make?
I make a motion that we suspend the policy to allow the superintendent to negotiate for the maintenance position.
A second.
Any further discussion? The only thing I would say is, I want to reiterate that you were, and with gratitude, appreciate that we're looking at your salaries regularly, and also reiterate that it sounds like this position's been open for 7 months, and thank the staff for stepping up in their time. And we can talk more about this with the policy committee, but maybe we can look at putting a policy in place, to deal with part of the departure routine positions. So we can talk about that later on. All in favor of Mr. Doherty's motion?
Okay. I do have one other item of business. It's a request of, I think, the finance office and also of the building. You folks only meet once a month. And you have your manifest in front of you tonight. In trying to balance out these vendors and getting things paid, now that we have the ability to scan in these documents for approval, I think it's time that you take a look at doing the manifest twice a month. Because, for example, if somebody submitted their bill either today or Friday, they're going to get paid for probably, June 25th would be when they get paid. And some of the vendors in today's day and age get a little bit nervous about that, whether they're contracted services or other folks. So I'd be willing to entertain a conversation about that. So,
What would that take? Is it physical signatures that have to happen at the school?
you can, so if I might, what you can do is a signature in email saying you authorize it, you reviewed it, you authorize it. You have, I think, just one person right now that's designated, but you made the motion that multiple people could. And then basically that email gets stapled to the signature page. If you wanted to have a stamp, you could stamp it there. But that's something to really consider.
I'm all for creating keys and getting people paid
Yes.
in a way that works. So I can make a motion to, what do we need to do to have manifests happen twice a month?
As applicable. I mean,
As a,
yeah, could be slow on.
as needed.
Yeah, I thought we'd done that before.
I thought we had too.
Haven't you been assigned the task of doing that with Jen?
Yeah, so, but okay, let's do it better. Let's keep going.
Yeah, should we do it by email?
Yes, I think, and being able to do it electronically,
So,
absolutely. Yeah. So make a motion, I can amend my motion to make a motion to have manifest signed twice a month as necessary and to do them electronically.
That's-
All in favor?
Good. Should we assign 2 people on the board to send emails to do that, so that
Yes.
so that there's no confusion?
Who's the
about
one
that?
person now? Jess?
Yeah.
I'm happy to be the second person. I don't need more.
Okay, so
is all in terms of that. So,
Yeah, great.
Last but not least, because this is the last meeting we'll have before graduation. Graduation's on June 8th. You folks are all invited. There is a special section for the school officials. You folks are school officials. It's 10 o'clock. Should be a beautiful day. Hopefully, no bugs, nice breeze, right? And I'd like to congratulate Molly Della. She, outstanding student, has been everywhere I go to an award ceremony. She seems to be winning awards. But not only is she a pleasant kid, but she's extremely high achieving. She's Jackson should be very proud. National Merit Scholar. And she could go on and do great things. But you should, Jackson community all contributed to Molly, even though she didn't need it, but she
She's spent a lot of time in the school. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay,
Erin, it's been a super busy month, and I have a lot before report, but what I really just wanted to focus on was some of the priorities. We talked a little bit about staffing and hiring. We do have those open positions. I did talk to Jackie at the SAU last week about advertising. Typically, I think we do them all together, but we did work it out so we could do a couple of separate Jackson advertisements in the paper, just so they don't kind of get lost and get it in. I did put it out on Facebook, and I already got some inquiries on that. So we're just trying to think about that process a little bit. We're going back to kind of talk about, attracting quality teachers. Really, since I started, that's kind of been my priority, is not just to fill the position, but fill it with the right fit for Jackson, which we have a very positive climate right now, and we're just looking for someone to join our team to keep that going. So we're looking for the right fit for those. I do have for each of these positions, elementary teacher, reading specialist, enrichment coordinator. I do have some applicants, so we're looking hopefully like the first week of June to hopefully set up some interviews, and in the meantime, maybe get some more applicants. So any questions on where we are with hiring?
Is there anything the community can do to support you getting the word out? What would
Just
be your
get the word out.
Okay, so share your Facebook
share
posts.
Facebook posts.
Okay.
Talk to friends. And,
Okay.
So yeah, that would be awesome if you could do that.
It's great to hear that there are applicants. That's huge for all those positions in the current climate, education climate, or higher climate. That's no small feat. So that speaks volumes.
Fingers crossed. Sixth grade transition at the beginning of the year, I had some feedback of just trying to increase some of our transition activities with Bartlett, and we have done that this year. Victoria Hill has played a large part in that. We've done, our sixth graders joined Bartlett one day for a Tin Mountain hike. We invited the sixth graders from Bartlett over here for 2 afternoons while Circus Smirkus was here, so they joined us here. Our sixth graders are going to be joining them on an overnight to Nature's Classroom in a couple weeks, opportunity to go out for step-up day, et cetera. So we're just trying to keep increasing those opportunities. We know it's a big step from, sixth grade to seventh grade, so we want to make sure families are comfortable when we send our kids up there. So we've been working really hard on that. And I am going to just focus on the playground for a few minutes. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to kind of see what we did out there, but if you have not been out there, you should really take a look out there. I do need to just mention a couple groups of people and people that really stepped up. We had a playground committee that did a lot of work. I will say Jay Henry is not here, but he really went way outside his comfort zone. He's a dirt guy. He doesn't have to work with landscape architects that much. But he did it with a smile after they formed a nice working relationship. Jerry was there quite a bit, from our committee meetings to showing up during the whole week, making sure things were happening, pitching in. So Jerry, thank you for that. Christina Campa is not here tonight, but without her vision and guidance, that I cannot tell you how many hours as a parent volunteer that she put into this project. And every time she talked about this, I couldn't visualize it. I'm like, this is way more phases than I thought we signed up for. But she is truly an amazing individual, super talented, and we are so grateful. I mean, I'll spend the rest of my life thanking her for this. I do, if we have 1 minute, I just want to show you, Susan had started a slideshow, just for people that weren't there, just going to show you kind of the process of it a little bit. I won't go through it all. But I just want to give you kind of an idea of what it looked like.
Parents, if you like to play on skid steer.
Jerry was on the skid steer. So this is phase one. Apparently, there's several phases to this, which is great. So maybe a 2, 3, 4. Last year, I guess we were looking at the playground and determining if we really did need a new playground. Suggestions were made that this swing set has been there for a while, I think. And I think, Jerry, you said you helped put in the original swing set?
Well, I helped
Or
move the original.
you helped move it.
Swing set. That swing set was here long before I ever arrived in Jackson.
So
It's moved a few times, but I helped.
So it's a need of an upgrade, and students drew their ideas, so they had say and input into this process. The playground committee was formed, there were meetings, there were funding sources. Like I said, Christine Campo was leading the charge even then. This is the plan that she had come up with, which is quite detailed and pretty amazing. There was surveys. And we'll keep adding this and we'll put this out there, this whole slideshow for the community to see. But there were surveys where we got some ideas from. The community wanted more climbing options and a space that fit the natural setting, which I think we're starting to accomplish. We have a lot of native plants to New England that Christina was very deliberate about making sure we had things that were native, that would fit in. We have a lot of wood structures out there. Trevor Lemmer did a great job providing us with logs that have been milled. We have stools out there that are going to be put in for an additional outdoor classroom area that isn't complete yet. We're grateful for the warrant that we were approved for, the $75,000. We also received a grant for $5,000. And we came in pretty much within budget. I mean, there's still more to be done out there, so we're going to get creative to see how we can finish some of that up, but we did a really good job with that. And then the weekend we advertised for volunteers to come, and this quote really stood out, and it's one I used when we were looking for volunteers. In all of my career, I think as an educator or as an administrator, this was probably one of the most fulfilling weekends, just because really, what this quote says, community is much more than belonging to something. It's about doing something together that makes belonging matter. And if you were here for those 3 days, I mean, it was super stressful, I will admit, up to that point, like trying to get the 18-wheeler off of Route 16 there, which without incident, we had 2 18-wheelers here. I was super nervous about that, but it was really worth it when you were here and experiencing all the people that came. We got an early start. I thought we were just going out to survey the playground and see what we were going to do. Jay and Jerry started taking it apart with some equipment Jay had from the fire station, so that was done in like an afternoon, I think. So we like really accelerated the building timeline. The construction equipment came in. Chief Perley was a huge help as always. The playset arrived. Then the mulch truck came in, which was really exciting for especially our K-1-2 kids. I think they spent like a good 15, 20 minutes literally jumping up and down every time the mulch came off the back of it. It was awesome. They were super, super excited about that. We did not get a lot of work done probably that week because kids were coming out and we were just checking out the scene because it was really exciting. Christina's there. She was really helping take charge. Thank God for her that day, just organizing volunteers. We had a lot of volunteers here, and all sorts of volunteers, neighbors, grandparents, future Jaguar families. We had kids literally just in the wheelbarrows. Often they loved it. They had so much fun. Moms and dads helped, which is great. We had tons of moms and dads. Students, they were all working really hard. There was a lot of dirt, there was a lot of mulch. There's Jerry. I don't know if you've been, is that your first time driving one of those? I don't know. Okay, second time. I saw Jay giving him a quick tutorial. I'm like, oh, very fast.
You look pretty comfortable.
No, it was pretty good. No one got hurt. We have future Jaguars that were there helping. Yep, I didn't know that this is what I was getting into. We have lots of green space out there. The things you see on the bottom is all fern sod that we put in, so that's gonna hopefully grow. There were tons of snacks. We had a stomp party on that Saturday, where kiddos came out and Miss Groves got popsicles. We did a lot more raking, a lot more digging, there's more mulch, more raking, more digging. There was dancing, there was music, kids were having a blast. They were swinging, they were trying out the swings, which they love. Now this is the part, the lower part, that's still, we're gonna get more mulch for it, but this is an area that we're gonna expand on, the picture on the left. More heavy lifting, I mean, then we started just making our own creations, I think, with some of the stones out there. Parents were getting creative. We had a lot of mini log benches that we're installing. The Gaga pit got moved. Concrete took 48 hours. This is kind of a group picture that we took at the end. Some extra, like I talked about, some things. And then we talk about phase 2, we won't tonight, but there is definitely some momentum, and we've already talked about what phase 2 is going to look like in some ways that we can raise funds for that. But it truly was a really awesome weekend. There was a lot of people that came and helped, so we're very grateful for that into the community. And I think once you see the completed project, it's going to really do a lot for our school community. So
We clap for that?
I say we talk about phase 2 and get people fired up for it while it's hot in their
I'm
mouths.
going to let you could like steer that.
I'm ready. Let's do it. Let's raise the money. Let's like get people on board. They're ready and they're jazzed. So.
Just a quick words to that.
Yeah.
I really do want to thank the whole community. This really was quite the community project. I mean, not only for the support for the Warren article, but which they really had a lot of support for. But showing up that day, I had a smile on my face the entire day because it was so exciting to see that many people here having that much fun building our playground. It was really quite spectacular. And like Erin, we will never be able to thank Christina enough for the work that she did on that, because without her, we probably would have gotten a playground and it would have looked entirely different. It would not have been nearly the kind of interaction with nature. It wouldn't have had the kind of interesting features to it that this one does. So that really was amazing. The entire staff here went way above and beyond on this one, from the organization of this to the actual building of it. It was really spectacular. And it really was scary sometimes. Erin, without your faith and your optimism, it would have been a lot scarier. We got in a place where it was like, how are we going to get this done? And Erin was just like, it's going to work. It's going to work.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. And that kind of energy kind of carried this through. So you really, really, truly went above and beyond. I saw you out there today in your dress, watering. The thing, it's like, and you were there all day Friday, all day Saturday, digging in the dirt the whole time. And it's just really spectacular. Thank you.
My pleasure.
What about that full reminder?
I also want to, I think we may have passed over it a little bit quickly, but I think we're also so fortunate to have somebody sitting up here with us that built the last playground and was building this playground too. And I think that continuity and commitment to the community over years and years is really something for us all to be appreciative of, Jerry.
Thanks for that.
Okay.
I'm glad they took the keys from you while you were there.
There were no injuries the whole weekend. No injuries.
There's like is it Jerry Steph? Is that what we're calling it?
We got to start with the art show and the beautiful child, and now that's our mid-break. And I don't think all of our meetings will be this long, but we do have a lot of important work, and we're getting these fabulous reminders for why we're here. So thank you all for all your patience, because we still have some very important things to do. The least The most important of which is coming up, one of the most important things, we will move on now, if it's okay with everyone, to board member issues. I have 2 FYI items, but I'll save them for the end of the board member issues. I just want to say that so I don't actually forget them. But we'll start with committee reports. Does anyone have anything they would to share out for committees? No? Okay. I do want to just thank all of you because we haven't formalized the committee assignments yet because we're waiting for our 5th board member, and we want to be fair to that process. But so far, in my very extended term these past few weeks, it's just been fantastic. Everyone reaching out, and especially giving heads up and just offering to cover, make sure we're getting to things, and just starting to make sure that we're doing what we need to do to be where we need to be. So thank you very much for that. Okay, onto the school board vacancy. So one of the things you saw in your packets is we attached the policy for this. It's a relatively updated policy, but we have a vacancy on the board, and tonight we have the hopefully the pleasure of filling that vacancy. And just so that everyone understands what we're doing, we're filling the vacancy for a 1-year term. It's up until the next election. So the person we're appointing tonight will be serving up until that next time. And we've advertised the position, and we're very fortunate that 2 candidates submitted letters, and at this time, let's just acknowledge we have Charlie Morrow and we have Melinda Foley Marcello. So thank you both for submitting your names. Both of these candidates have been in the community full-time for several years. You can tell by their attendance at meetings at various places throughout the community that they really do care about education and our community. So it's exciting that both of you submitted your names, and you've been thoughtful participants, at least by observation and from various contacts. The way that we'd like to do things tonight is, per the policy, we will talk a little bit about this, as I've just done, and then this is just an opportunity for us to conduct a short interview, ask you questions. We want you to be able to ask us questions as well in front of everyone, because transparency is important. And then at that point, we'll take motions to fill the position. But before I do that, I do want to say that you both have been so humble in presenting yourselves and so thoughtful and dedicated in how you approach this position, asking questions, and really representing yourselves as sort of not knowing either that much about the school board or this particular school board. And I do want to say that we need all types of people, and so it is a great, it's wonderful that you're so humble, but I just want you to know that you will get up to speed very quickly, and I think our board will very gratefully fill you in on whatever you need. So our 2 candidates, as I said, are Melinda and Charlie. Just a very brief word about both. Melinda's entire working life has been devoted to elementary education, first as a teacher of several different grades, and next as a reading specialist, and the final 12 years as a principal. She's lived here for several years with her husband. And Charlie Morrow is not only a parent, but beyond that, he's a psychologist by training. He works with organizations and leaders to help them be their best. He's on the analytical and scientific side of psychology. So you will be, every one of you will be a wonderful gift. And with that, I will turn it over to whoever would like to go first to talk with us. Doesn't matter. Okay, Melinda. So with that, I'll turn it to the board to, if anyone has any questions, and maybe just to kind of make it easy, maybe you can just share with us why you're interested in the board, and any thoughts you want to share with us about the position and your role.
Well, thanks for having me here. Like you had mentioned, my whole life has been devoted to education, and I've been retired for about, I keep saying 5 or 7 years, but it's probably a little more than that now. Moved up here 4 years ago. And I've just always been interested in the Jackson School, and I was a part-time resident here as well. And just sort of getting to know the specialness of the community has been really exciting for me. And I'm sort of trying to figure out how I can help. This is my expertise, but I'm a listener. I'm not going to come in and say, this is the way I think things should be done, because I really don't know. You know, I know the community just peripherally, as far as the educational community goes. But it's my passion, and I'm happy to share whatever knowledge I have and take on whatever chores you need doing, which I probably still will do if you become the person to be on the board. So I'm going to go away.
Does anyone have any questions?
Melinda, have you been on other boards? Like, not school boards, but just general boards?
Right now I'm president of Friends of the Library. And I was very involved in our library before we moved here. I was on the Conservation Commission in my prior town. So, yes.
Thanks.
Melinda, do you see any sort of obstacles to participation on the board?
No, the only obstacle I mentioned in my letter is that we do travel in the spring. And if you do Zoom meetings, I'm all set.
We do. We are
Okay.
officially Zoom.
Okay, because I can always make sure I'm somewhere where we can Zoom if I know far enough in advance. We usually go there for 6 or 7 weeks in the spring, but who knows whether that will continue.
Okay. Anyone else? Charlie?
Hey, Charlie Morrow. Well, my claim to fame is I married Christina Camp. I'm one of the Leslie Gardner. I met Melinda because she's this crack gardener. I don't know if you guys knew this. But anyway, so I'm a parent, and I just think that if you're in a community, you should pay it back. And so I'm happy to serve on the board. I am a psychologist. I occasionally dabble in educational policy, for professional reasons. But that's not going to help you. I'm just happy to step up and help out. That's it. I just want to be a positive force. And I think there's the school board's got some big topics for the next couple of years, and just want to make sure that those move smoothly on. I don't actually have a dog in the fight, for example, with the high school options committee. It's a big deal for this community. And I want to make sure that goes smoothly. So that's my concern. Questions, comments?
Maybe the same question for you, Charlie. What kind of boards have you served on?
I've served on the board for Howard Mound, member of the corporation, but it's light. I would be learning. So.
And I'll ask the same question as well. Any obstacles that you would have?
I don't think so. I mean, occasional Zoom meeting would be fabulous, but I think I'm not alone in that. No real, and I'm humble about it. It's work. I'm happy to do it, but if you're excited to do it, then you should. I just want to make sure that the school's well governed and that you guys are, not shouldering all the burden yourself.
Awesome. Great. Okay. Anyone else? Anything? Okay. Anyone want to make motions?
I'll make a motion to give Charlie Moore. We'd be lucky to have either one of you, and I could flip a coin. And the only reason I'm choosing Charlie is because this is the third time it's been.
Really, I'll do it.
and that's it.
Can I ask one more question? Do you want to just make a motion? Or no?
So, I have a motion to this.
Okay. In terms of, one thing that's on my mind is succession planning, because we have people that are, I think all of us want to leave the board in good stead as we transition off. And so, any thoughts? This is a one-year position, but two of us just filled vacancies and then we bring in. Can you speak to that, or any thoughts on that?
I probably will not serve for more than a year.
Okay. Thank you.
I would think it's a long-term thing. Put all this work into getting up to speed in a year. I would like to.
That's great to know. What do we do now? Given that
I
information.
don't need a second nomination. I think we just make nominations and then, so we'll make nominations.
Given what Melinda just shared, that seems like for continuity for our board, that would be really great. Not that Charlie, we can Just be like, Charlie, we have a space.
Something will happen, I'll end up serving sooner. or
I know,
later.
but I appreciate your continuity piece, and I appreciate your candor.
Yes.
Like, it's awesome to say, hey, this is so, can I make it? a
So
different motion?
just a
What
point
happens?
of order.
Yes, thank you.
You have a motion on the floor.
Yes.
You would call for a second. You can have multiple nominations,
Okay.
but Jerry has a motion on the floor for chair.
Yeah.
So there's been no second, so.
There's been
No second.
Okay.
Then you can call for nomination.
Yeah, so any other
We
nominations?
can make a motion for Melinda.
Okay, any seconds?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, all right.
Yeah, Charlie, you rock.
I'm here for you guys.
Yes, clearly, Charlie.
What I'd like to say though is please stay tuned, because we still have more to talk about, and we do need people, and one of the things that I think we'd like to do as a board is enlist folks to have contacts with us to help on some of these initiatives we're looking at as we move forward, because we need you. So you will be hopefully working with us, even if you're not on the board right now, and anyone who's in the audience, even you, Charlie, because your plans might change, people will not be on this board.
Can I speak to that for just a second? It's okay.
So you cannot speak to
I wanted to speak to the piece that one thing that I would like to have in our board packet, because I do this in the organization I run, is like a board term sheet. It's just like every time it's an FYI. So whether that's the
And
schools
we'll get to
or
that.
we do
Yeah,
that.
we'll put that in.
Yeah, so that we see who's coming up, and then also when we're doing plan succession, we'll tell you about that. All
Yes,
of that.
that's a great idea. So let me congratulate you and welcome to the board. Thank you.
Melinda, just, if you could be in touch with my office,
Okay.
give me a call. We'll go through a brief orientation.
Great.
You need to get sworn in. You can either do it here in Jackson or when you come to our office.
Do a card or something. I'll introduce you. You haven't broken into the second last one. Do you have a card? Okay, no.
Okay, in the interest of not keeping everyone here all night long, we're going to move on to board discussion. If we could just get, one of the things I'm looking to do as we move forward is when we're going through this meeting, if we can come back and sort of just give a couple of the highlights, because we do see them in the newspaper, but we don't get everything in the newspaper that might be relevant to our particular town and board. So for those who were at the SA9 meeting last week or participated in anything regarding the superintendent search, I would love it if you could just give us a couple of highlights or your takeaways from that. And for those who are joining us now, Jared and James and I were able to make it to those meetings, and I was able to make it to the board meeting as well. So,
No, please.
So the SAU 9 meeting, we spent a fair amount of time talking about the superintendent search, and so we were advertising for an intern superintendent position as well as a full-time superintendent position, and separately, so the superintendent search committee jumped right back into that task and is currently going through that. And that to me was probably the most significant thing from the SAU 9 that we had, and how we filled any gaps
I think that was the most significant thing was the superintendent search. So,
That's right.
Kevin, there wasn't really anything else really kind of.
Election and personnel, thanks to the board members who get back to me on the payroll. And then talking about, we'll do another presentation in June for the full board.
and that will be, well, we'll talk about meeting dates, but and can we talk about the superintendent search summary updates?
Sure, Lisa. We jumped back into the search committee. The search committee's met once. We do have some candidates to consider, and we're getting together, I think, Thursday, tomorrow. We're getting together
Tuesday, the 21st.
Tuesday the 21st. We're good.
I'll send out a reminder for it.
I also did not get my rating sheet done for that. It was supposed to be done by noon today.
So can you share where those notices of those meetings are going and where the minutes are being held? So
Yeah,
that-
they're posted online,
Okay.
and the agenda was posted probably last Friday for Tuesday's meeting, and in that agenda packet, there are draft meeting minutes.
Okay. So
And
we can
they'll
get
be-
on the
they'll be
SAU
put up.
website.
Thanks for asking my question. by the way we've always done it. And the way we've always done it doesn't actually align perfectly with what the laws say we're having to do. And so Pam's been doing a lot to try to clean that process up so that we do the superintendent search much more transparently. And that's why I question about where it is. And that's going to be important going forward. So thank you, Pam, for kind of organizing that and getting that superintendent search committee, doing it in a way that's more transparent. Because we did struggle on the committee with that concept of what is our role, what's supposed to be public versus non-public. And I think we're starting to get that figured out pretty well. So moving forward, the community is going to be able to see that process more transparently.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Questions, comments? Okay. I'm going to just go back for a brief moment because you just reminded me. I said it out loud and then I forgot it, but the board member issues. With one of the things I'm hoping we can do is share any professional development that we get, any highlights. And one of the pieces I wanted to just bring your attention to, it's in the board package. You all saw, which is why the board packet was so long, but I thought it was relevant and that it might be helpful to just have a copy for yourselves, is the 91A update from the New Hampshire School Board Association, because it does an excellent job of basically giving a one-pager about what is a public meeting, when are you in a public meeting, what do you have to do, how do you go into a non-public. So that is a fabulous resource for anyone who wants to know about that. And if you need any explanation, by all means, I'm sure you guys get one of this at this point, but it's become a pet project of mine, so I'm happy to talk about it. And on that note, I also just want to highlight that the New Hampshire School Board Association, and thank you for this, Kevin, they have such fantastic professional development for school board members, and so you all received the email. I just wanted to get it out into the public that we can go to these live webinars, but also there are recordings of them and the handouts. If you can't make it, you can watch I think you can watch the webinar on high speed if you don't have that much time. You can take the handouts if you need to.
Not that I've done that.
I would never do that, but yeah, I'm from New York, so we speak quickly anyway. I can't understand slow speech patterns. So, but they have everything from, special education law, right to know, presentation by vendors, of particular interest to you, Melinda. They have a 2024 new school board member orientation. So if you'd like that, let me know. I'll happily direct you to that. So I just wanted to highlight that for everyone because the children are watching, right? The students are watching. So. Okay, with that, shall we turn to you, Ms. Sasha?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you all to get out of your seats. And join me up here.
Hello, the audience, I think the board.
We're all going to stay. It's time for the 7th inning stretch.
Well, I think, yeah, come on up here. Yeah, come on up. There are actual solstices back here. I'm a paper, pen, tactile person. Are there lights, like actual lights up here? Come on up.
You want light up there?
Want to take off?
Yeah.
I figured if some track facilitator had this covered up.
If anyone that's here from the public is interested in like the summary document, what we're going to talk about, it's right here and you can grab copies.
It's fortunate.
I'm friendly. Come on. What do you want? Well, we have the community here, so I think some board members, this is for you, but I think others might want to listen and read, and so come explicitly on. So I was asked to come tonight and provide you all with a bit of a summary of the notes and the conversation from the listening session that happened on March 7th. And what was really great to see is it was about 17 of these large pieces of paper that actually had a lot of alignment and a lot of synergy, and distilled down into some pretty, I think, digestible concepts and specific requests. The phrase we were using was key considerations. We were asked to capture key considerations. So some of these are recommendations, but they are the considerations that matter most to this community. And so I started with these sort of 3 themes, which everything else falls out from under. And the first is 1, you're tasked with developing a comprehensive plan for sharing your process and the findings for the high school option search with the community. And what was important in there was that there was a process for sharing it, like what are you doing, how are you doing it, and then what did you find out. And the second was that what you're building is a data-driven process to evaluate those options, and that it's in alignment with your strategic plan. And then the third piece was that there were some big considerations around researching and addressing governance and financial implications that would be associated with whatever decision you're making or any of the considerations that are there. And so what I've done for you tonight is to break out the color coded. So some implementation recommendations that came out of each of these 3 areas. So the first one, what folks wanted for that comprehensive plan was that there was a published calendar of events, deadlines available on the website, that there was leadership identified for the initiative, and that those leaders were accessible to the community, so there could be a dialogue back and forth. And then 3, that we connect with other communities and sources and learn from their experience so that we're not reinventing the wheel. This isn't the first time that communities have looked at options for high school selection, not even in this valley. So what can we learn from the way others have done it? I'm going to pause there. Any questions on those before I move on to the 2? So 2 was building that data-driven model to evaluate the options and making sure it was in alignment with the plan. And here we can get more into the weeds, and I'll keep unpacking this as we go. But one recommendation, make sure that they're realistic options that you're looking at, and being transparent with the community about your criteria for inclusion and exclusion of a particular option. Consider alumni input as part of the process. Determine if what happens if certain data isn't available for all schools. And I think selecting the resources you use will help make sure that you have consistent data across your choices. But if you can't find it, what do you do? Interest in having data that not only shows a current snapshot, but shows direction of growth over time. And including data sets that address the community considerations documented from the pre-7 listening session, which are down here. And I'm just going to go ahead and jump there for a minute. So all of the specific requests, which are in that handout that's sitting on the bench there, and will be provided to you, school board members, by email, fell under these categories. Program and academic performance, transportation, safety, facilities, networks and collaboration, cost, extracurricular activities, and special education. And we got pretty granular. I left that off for tonight. I don't think we need to go over that, but hopefully a future working group will. And number 3, this is the piece about research and address governance and financial implications. So recommendations there, concerns there were the relationship with the SAU currently and board representation, impact on state tuition process, implications if there are multiple sending schools, and options for contract length and what happens if you want to back out of it during a given contract. Any questions?
Just a question about
Yeah.
what does the impact on state tuition process mean?
I think there was a question, if I remember, specific to if you were choosing an out-of-state school or there are any private options, if there would be any variation in the amount of money received from the state per pupil.
I don't understand what that means, and also it's okay.
Okay, well,
Well, we can address
and
it
there
now.
may be things,
Well, yeah.
that was the question and the consideration that was raised, we captured it, and you may find what you will notice in there is a whole lot more information, and some of the things may be really clear to you all as you start working through this. Some of them will hopefully come up again, because I think what really stood out to me is we have a community that wants to be involved in this process. And I think more than anything, more than even what the selection or selections might be in the end, the importance is that there's a process, that there's more than one option considered, at least from the beginning, and that there's say and voice and dialogue about how you get from that wide open funnel to whatever the selection is in the end.
Great.
So I was also asked not just to distill, but if I had any recommendations for you as a school board about how you might move forward from here, you can chew on them, you can adopt them, you can leave them here on the wall. But facilitating planning processes for a very long time and listening to this community over the last 2 years, I think these conversations started 2 years ago, and seeing where we are now, I think that we tried a committee structure, and from this point forward, I would recommend that this board, I believe, can work out of a school board meeting as long as it's an open working session. Is that true?
Relatively.
Okay. So having open working sessions with some regularity so that the community could see this work in action and have an opportunity, whether that's through the full meeting or a portion of the meeting, to participate, is something I would strongly encourage versus trying to schedule committees that are then reporting. There's so many layers of translation there and so many opportunities for details to get lost. So my recommendation would be open working sessions that include the public to some extent. Second, for early on in that process, a decision to be made about what realistic options mean, and to begin to funnel those options from the full expanse of what's possible down to something that feels manageable for that working group to begin building out these data sets around. And then the next piece is this data analysis. And two things really stood out in the meeting on the 7th and from my work doing research and analysis. One, you need some quantitative data. There are some very specific pieces of information that are not negotiable, they're not interpretive, they're about each of the schools that you might consider. The DOE, New Hampshire DOE, has school profiles that contain a lot of that information. That might be a source that you consider, but looking for really high quality, consistent primary sources to provide that quantitative data set would be one recommendation. And then the second is to think about how you gather that qualitative piece. I found in my work that primary sources are a great way to do that. And so is there a way that this working group can bring some of those primary resources into the room and have them in conversation with the community and with the school board to help gather some of those pieces and then document them? And I think that will get you kind of moving from all these things are possible, where do we go, closer towards some recommendations that you might want to decide on.
Okay, take a picture.
Can you take a picture?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But I can't see very well.
Yeah. And really, you can come on up here. No. And I appreciate everybody getting up. It's really fun to come into this room over and over for these meetings and observe that we all, including me, like sit in the same spaces every time. And so it's fun to get people up and engaging with content. So yes. Any other questions?
No, on parents tonight, but parents tend to sit
In the same place.
seats that they should sit in.
Well, that's wild.
It's lovely work.
Yeah, very good.
Well, I'm happy to provide this in a digital form.
Is that what this is, Sasha, or is that?
Yeah, that's, yep.
Okay.
And there's some more detail there, under especially some of the data pieces. Anyone else need one of these? Okay, does anyone else need one of those? Okay, great. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so just one thing, just to be mindful of are the sort of the dates, and we still have a good amount of time. There are, and a couple of reminders, we've already withdrawn from the Conway contract, which sort of triggered negotiations, although we haven't done anything yet. But that was like a step in what we would be doing. So we did that back in September. Yes.
We didn't withdraw from the common contract. We opted not to renew.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
We're still in.
yeah, well, we voted to opt out. So that was the official vote. That was in September 18th of 2023. So between now and 2027 is when we would need to be making these decisions. So we have time. So I just wanted to kind of like orient everyone, so because the timing can be very confusing, and that can be part of what we do as far as the decisions and getting timelines into one place and calendars. So with that, where would you all like to go? Do you have thoughts?
I feel quite strongly that we can have a working group culture, but there has to be leadership. We can't accomplish all these things in a school board for like there needs to be a group of some board members, some community members who are driving this forward. So it could either be a committee or it could be a committee plus a working group session, sort of. But I don't think we're in an efficiency mode if we're talking about everything all the time. I just don't think we're going to drive it forward. So,
and I support the idea of having something outside the structure. I mean, the idea of having even before a board meeting, having a monthly meeting where we say we'll be talking about the high school options, and there's leadership that will be driving the conversation. And I don't know whether people want to have official members of it, or do you want it to be the board is meeting, whoever can make it?
No, I think there needs to be I think there needs to be dedicated leadership. It's like if we can call it a committee, we can call it whatever it's called, but I think people have to like take the ball, run the ball, create the documents, move it forward. That to me, that's how my work gets done.
Yep.
So I come in and add to the bias. And I think that if we do something where we have we need to be clear if board members are there, how many of us can be there, and how that can work. But I think very big, transparent, like, hey, like on the, people can come and be listeners, all the transparency that we can have. But I think having a dedicated group of people who's moving the ball down the court is how we're going to do this.
Yeah. So the only thing I would say is that we'd like to have our fifth member when we decide who will be present at those, and what we can do is say we'll have at most 2 members at any given time, and we can decide amongst us who wants to be present at those. Otherwise, there's no quorum, because otherwise it would be more than But still, because it would be a working group or committee on behalf of the board, it would be noted for the public, and it would be minutes. And what we can do is also have a discussion about would citizens want to be a part of that officially, or would it just be every month, we'll be meeting at 5 o'clock on the day of our board meeting, comments you wish, type of thing. Read the agenda and comments you wish. What do you think? Either way.
So that last option that you're talking about to me is a horrible idea.
Okay.
It doesn't work that way. And the community can do its own process if it wants to. It's completely separated from the board if it wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
If we are going to participate in something that's even in the community, it would be very important for that to be a board subcommittee, that the board will set the parameters for and the definition for and the goals for what it's doing. We should never, ever set up a subcommittee with the intention of not putting on a quorum with the board so that we avoid the quorum issue with the board. That's what got us in trouble with the last high school options committee. And it's gotten us in trouble in the past. We never want to do that. So we would never want to use the quorum issue to avoid public disclosure issues. That was one thing that we would recommend when we had the SU9 meeting with the attorney that came in from the School Board Association and our own attorney all reinforced that idea very much. And one of the things that boards consistently get themselves into trouble with is when they try to avoid public disclosure by not having a quorum there. It's not.
Wait, I don't think you're understanding me. What I'm suggesting is that we would have notice and we would have minutes. I actually would be in favor of having a video there. So I'm the opposite, where I would have it all out all the time. And I think it would have to be a very clearly defined pathway forward. It wouldn't be a free-for-all. What I was suggesting was that we, as a board, would have to decide who would be sitting there to participate in the conversation officially. Obviously, anyone would be present, but board members, if we decide it's a 2-person group, we can't have a 3rd person show up, because that's actually what got us into trouble last time, because we ended up with a quorum when it wasn't supposed to be one.
Well, what got us into trouble last time was effectively, and again, these things have all been updated, laws have been changing, we're trying to really kind of conform to them. And
was saying was that if we have a board meeting, it would be expected all 5 of us were there. So we have to make a decision about, are we having a board meeting and all 5 of us are expected to be there?
Our subcommittees, whether there's 1 board member there or 3 board members there, should all be considered regular meetings now.
Jerry, that's a given. I think every time we're talking about school board business, we should note it, there should be minutes. If it were up to me, it would be recorded with audiovisual equipment. So we're in agreement on that. I don't care how many board members are there. Even if a board member's not there, if it's a committee that's meeting to do board service, I think it should be noted. I think there should be minutes. I think that it should be fully transparent for the public. So we're not disagreeing with that at all. All I was trying to figure out was who's coming to these meetings? How do we want to set that up?
I don't even know what you're setting up. I guess I don't know what points to.
Either whatever word you want to use.
But are you talking about setting up a subcommittee, or are you talking about setting up something different, I guess?
Oh, we don't know because we're just talking about it now. Some number of people interested in this topic to move the work forward outside of an official board meeting.
So what are our options? Our options are to have an official subcommittee, or
I think that's all.
that's probably our only option.
Yeah, that's
And that's
fine.
what we, yeah.
Yeah. What I was doing was responding to the idea that we don't want to have this conversation, the high school options committee meetings, the high school options discussion every time we have a board meeting, that we can do work outside the meeting and bring it to here, if that's what people want. I'm happy either way, as long as it's getting noted, as long as there are minutes, as long as the people know about it, I'm fine.
But I think the board needs to do a lot to establish the proper process for it. I think that's what we lacked the last time we went through this. The board didn't establish the goals, the parameters, and what we're trying to achieve. And we still have not done that.
Well, I think that's what the point of this is.
And so I think we need to I would have a work session with this board to discuss how we're going to move the process forward. And if we could do that, I think if we meet the next meeting in half an hour beforehand, just the meeting will meet at 5:30 next time or 5 next time, whatever we can schedule it to do, that we have a work session to talk about the specific issue.
I think that works because I was hoping to wait until we were 5th.
That's great. Let's do that.
So let's do that.
Yep.
That would be,
June 17th.
that's that Monday.
It's Monday, June 17th. We have a regular scheduled meeting at 6. You want to start at a work session at 5:30?
Yeah, but I want to be more specific about what we're supposed to be doing there, so let's hone that a little bit, because 1, 30 minutes goes by very quickly, and 2, I want to make sure that another month doesn't go by, and remember just at that point negotiating whether it's a working committee or a subcommittee and what we're doing. So what is the purpose of that work session? What do we want to get out of that?
So Jerry, what I hear from you is you want to have a directed mandate from the school board about what we want the subcommittee to do.
Exactly.
Okay. So, is there is there one of us that can come to that and say, here's what our recommendation is using this? We have the template for it right here, right? So we're ready to go. It's basically this and saying, do we agree with this? Is there anything that we change? Is this what we want the mandate to be? And how do we want to structure it, Kevin?
Yeah, just because all the boards are kind of going through this, you want to establish who's on the committee, right? Which are official seats and which ones aren't. Who are you voting members of the committee? And then what is the purpose, right? It's kind of that broad objective of this is the purpose of this committee, so that when you get to the end, you'll know you're at the end. And you have answered the question, right? And that's why I think Jerry's point, really, you need to be specific, of what it is.
And I think we should use our policies for that. I think we actually have a policy on establishing a subcommittee, so let's just use that.
And that's kind of what I would recommend as well. And I'm just going to kind of predict that if we have a half-hour work session before our next board meeting, we're not going to be anywhere near close to being able to set up a subcommittee from that one work session.
Why not, given that we have these recommendations? I'm trying to understand what they are.
Here's an
Yeah.
example,
Please.
for instance. What I don't understand is we haven't established why we're doing this. In other words, are we trying to save the district money? Are we trying to give parents options? Do we want to consider something other than conduct? We haven't really even had that discussion of why are we going through this process yet. So I'd like to have a conversation about why we're doing this. For instance, giving parents the options on where to go, send their kids to school, that's not limited to high school. That's not limited to 2027. We could give the parents options on where they send their kids to grammar school, middle school, high school, and we could offer them that next year. So like, the idea that we can't do that is, we haven't had that conversation. So there's two different things to me we're looking at. One is the topic of giving parents the option of where to send their children to school. And then the other is where do we send our high school kids to school? And those are two completely different, those are two different things to explore. They're not the same thing, they're completely different. And just as an example, to me, giving parents the option of where to send your kids to school, whether it's the grammar school, the middle school, or the high school, it flies in the face of our strategic plan, and it flies in the face of the spirit of community. And it would probably add $600,000 to $700,000 a year to the school.
Okay, I'm going to just stop you now because that's part of a bigger conversation. I'm all for deciding whatever the scope is. We've opted out, the board voted to opt out of the Conway contract. I think we need to limit our scope to, that's the discussion. We now have to make a decision about a specific contract and what to do with that. If people want to talk about middle school and elementary school, that someone can bring that to us. But right now, what we need to do is, as a board, make a decision for our high schoolers and what to do with the Kennet contract. If we're going to go forward with Kennet, we need to know why, and we need to explain it to the people, and we need to know what the parameters are of that, and we need to negotiate it. If we're not going to do that, we need to know what we're going to offer instead, because we legally have to provide an adequate education to our students. So I think that's where we have to start at least.
I'd like to suggest, I think that Kevin is right, that it seems as though the right questions for us to answer in a 30-minute working group to get the ball rolling are, should we make a committee? How many people should be on it? What's the composition of the committee? Who votes? And what is the goal of the committee, or what question do we want the committee to answer? And I think that's more than 30 minutes worth of content. And I think you're right, Jerry, that this is a difficult conversation, and it's a big deal. We have to start somewhere. And in part, I have confidence that if we have a committee that's organized the right way and has the right people on it, that those questions that you just brought up, which are really central and legitimate questions, will come up as part of the committee, and it'll be part of the conversation. So, but we have to start somewhere. So I'd like to suggest that we start there. We create a structure. The other piece that I heard Sasha say is that she heard very strongly from the community that the community wants to be involved. To me, I think that it's very present in my mind at the beginning of the school year, the 24-25 school year. I'd like us to have a very firm deadline, to have that committee in place, ready to go, so that as people are gathering and getting the 24-25 school year underway, we're ready to engage the community again. So for example, when our Jackson students step up to middle school, there's a step-up night with orientation. All the parents are in the same place at the same time. It's a perfect opportunity for an engagement session to hear from those families. And I think there are other events that take place at the beginning of the school year. So I'd like to sort of reverse engineer this process so that we have the building blocks in place so we can come into the new school year ready to engage the public.
What would you all think of this? Did you want to say something? Did you want to say more? No. What would you all think of this? It would be nice to do this with our full board. So if we were to come back next month, before we get to a working committee, if we were in a regular board meeting, I think you're right, Joe. First of all, let's establish that our board wants to do anything with the contract. Maybe we take a vote and say we want to just go forward with the Kennet contract, and then we don't have to do anything else, right? If we just say we're going to do it with Kennet, then we don't have to do anything else. We don't even know that because we've never had that conversation as a board.
That's the point.
Yeah, so I'm agreeing with you. So I'm saying, why don't we start there and establish a purpose before we get a working committee or we get a group together?
But to me, that's entirely different process than starting to go to look for the data points before you even frame what you're talking about.
Right, and
Because
I'm offering that
one
too.
of the things I'm most confused about that I get a perception from the community is that it seems to me as though the community thinks we have dozens of options of where to send our kids to high school. And because this board hasn't had an intelligent discussion about what are our actual options and what do those actual options look like. To me, that's where the process should start. And I don't understand why we're not starting there. I guess that's what I've been saying this in this high school office from the very beginning. I'd like to understand what our options are and then start the process of considering those options. And until we know what the options are, and one of the things that happened back in December is we asked Kevin to kind of quantify from the RSA, from the legal standpoint, what are our options? And he provided the RSAs with a description of what those meant, which really described what our options are. And we've never talked about that. And I don't understand that. I really don't, because the community, to me, seems very confused about things that they wouldn't necessarily have to be confused about if we were doing the process in a better way. And to me, that process starts at what are our options? Is Freiburg an option? Is Gorham an option? Is White Mountain Academy an option? So we haven't talked about the actual options in front of us yet. To me, if we did that, then we'd be able to move the process forward in a more intelligent way.
So let me ask you, do you not want to start with the task of the questions we're asking?
I'd like the board to have a conversation about what are our realistic options. It's on there. What's our realistic options?
So let's get specific. How would you propose we do that? Give us a framework to move forward.
To me, you start with the RSAs that can provide us so we understand how our options would actually work in the real world.
Okay.
So the board understands, okay, if we're going to send our kids to Freiburg, or we're going to give parents the option of where to send their kids, we can explain that to them.
Okay, so we got those answers from the New Hampshire School Board Station. I mean, I can remember you and I having controversy about it when I asked those questions to the New Hampshire School Board Association in November of 2023. They responded to us in December of 2023. I didn't get all my questions answered, but I feel comfortable understanding the parameters of the law for what we can and cannot do. I don't think that we've given all those answers in detail to the public, but I think as a board, we have an understanding of what we can and cannot do in terms of considerations. So if you don't, I think that's a good follow-up for a board member to do, to say, I don't understand what happened. I felt comfortable with that, and I was willing to leave that at that point.
Okay, I just look at it back up and say again, I'd like to identify the actual schools we're talking about for consideration and start talking about those schools. I don't understand why we're not doing that.
Okay, so I think part of the question, what's confusing to me is on the one hand, you want us to narrow the scope of what we're doing. And then on the other hand, you want us to pick what schools we would consider or what options we consider. How could we possibly know what options we're considering without understanding what parameters we're even going to use to consider them?
Well, just as to me, we have, in theory, we have the option of Gorham, Freiburg, and Marlborough Academy, and White Mountain Academy, in theory. And the only reason why it's in theory is because we've never talked to any of those schools. And that, to me, I don't understand. So you keep talking about what Tamworth did, and that's a good model to follow. The very first meeting Tamworth had with their subcommittee is that they identified what schools they were going to consider, and then they sent groups of people from the committee to go start.
Actually, we did the same thing. They copied our model. So
We
did
never-
the same thing. We had a subcommittee that did that.
The subcommittee determined what identified schools we were considering.
They identified several schools.
And then you
options.
went to engage competition.
We
with
started
schools?
to, and then we were thwarted. I mean, I don't want to rehash all history because I think it's time to move forward. Let me ask you, as a board, what do you think the next step should be at this point? That would be constructive to move this question forward.
Why are we so afraid to identify the schools we talk about?
Well, can't we just do that right now? What schools are you
What
talking
schools
about?
are you talking about?
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about. What schools we
What
consider?
schools? Go!
To me, the only realistic school that we have to consider is Freiburg Academy High School, and that's it. We don't
So,
need.
Freiburg and Kennett, to clarify, not just Freiburg and Kennett. Okay,
Yes.
okay, sorry, just to clarify, yes.
Okay.
Fair.
Like, I don't understand what's so hard about that.
I don't think there's anything hard about it. I think we
Well,
were
because
just
like,
waiting
when
for.
you look at like the schools that we can't get the data from, what schools are we talking about? That's what leaves me confused.
Part of it is we've all participated in different ways. The original committee and have narrowed it down to 3 schools, plus
Which was Freiburg, Gorham, and Kennett.
Right, and that was a conversation the board had several times and had come to the board several times. times. So, and there was good reason for why other places were omitted. So it wasn't even on my radar that we were still like thinking, oh, we'll send people 2 hours away. So
I think there's value in this conversation, but I'm thinking of how Micah started the conversation with a recommendation that we kind of create a blueprint to move forward. And so, Jerry, I hear what you're saying, and I personally feel comfortable that if we agree that we're going to spend the 30 minutes creating a working group or a subcommittee or whatever the correct term is, and that I would be comfortable with asking the subcommittee to look at the options of Freiburg and Kennett so we can focus, as you've suggested, and make that just part of the question that we ask them to answer. Would you feel comfortable with that stipulation moving forward with planning a work session for the 17th so that we can create a subcommittee with that goal to get moving?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I'd like to make a motion that we...
before you make your motion, can I just add one comment?
Sure.
I think Jerry's making a very good point, which is that we also need to define the exact tasks for X amendment to do. And, you know, introducing the idea that we can change education across the board. That's always our ability, right? That's a good point too. But I think it's important to be very specific about what that task is, right? We have a contract that we've opted not to renew at this point, but what does that mean for us? What are we looking for? So when we go to that group, what are we looking for them to do? Because we don't want to trip them up. I think that's we're all agreed on.
So I think we'll have it in that work session, and we'll develop that.
This is my concern. It needs to come from the board. It has to be a charge from us, not from a committee that is deciding it.
But that's what we just decided we were going to do in the work session, correct?
I just want to be very clear about that.
So we're not going to take a half an hour. We're going to come here at 5 o'clock. We're going to sit down. We're going to make a plan for how we have a subcommittee that goes forward and looks at Kennett and Freiburg as the options and what we're asking for them to come back to us. And we're going to set up a structure wherein we probably have monthly meetings by that committee and report outs to the board meeting, hopefully right after, so that we have a close connection and lots of community transparency, right? So it's like every Monday, the hour before the board meeting is that meeting, then it's fresh, it's there, and we have a mandate, and we look at what, probably 99% of this is like, what happens at Kennett, what happens at Freiburg? Come back to us, let's see what we're doing.
And I'd like to make sure that they are noted for the public and
All of it.
we can get
Yeah.
videotape. Let's just make sure that it's.
So all we have to do in our working session is figure out what we want them to do, which is to basically talk about this, get clear if there's anything we want to remove from it, confirm it, and say what kind of, who's going to be on the committee, who's voting.
So you're talking about for now, we're talking about kind of meet 1 hour, we're starting at 5 o'clock instead of.
No, I'm saying next board meeting, we would at 5 o'clock have an hour-long planning session for this to get launched, right?
And just, and again, just for the agenda format
Yeah.
and the 91A issues, just so we understand what we're actually doing.
Yeah.
We used to call them work sessions, and we treated them differently. We can call whatever we want to. If
We just started working
If
on
we
it.
meet at 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
the meeting begins at 5 o'clock. The first agenda item is the work session.
Great, that sounds perfect. Yep, that'd be great.
All right.
So
motion.
do we need a motion?
No, the motion to that, it's just that's just our plan.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
We have a plan.
All
Yeah,
right.
look, that's
So you're going to, just so I'm clear, so you don't want 2 separate meetings?
No, we're just gonna have a meeting start with that.
Okay.
That's great, Jared. Thank you for that.
So we could have 2 meetings. Just
No,
yes.
Well, just,
Wait a minute, so this is one meeting, this is now part of our official meeting agenda?
Yes.
It can be, we just have to be very clear about it.
Can we consider something different? Kevin, it looks like you got interrupted mid-sentence. Go ahead.
so, just in my experience of going to 8,000 meetings, if you do a start time and a completion time for your work session, then it doesn't bleed into
That's right.
something else.
That's great. That's
So if people know that they're going to a school board meeting at 6 o'clock, they know this is the agenda and it will follow this format. Where if you start at 5, do I have to sit through all all of that, and am I going to? So my recommendation would be to do a 5 to 6 work session. It does get duly noted. We'll get Melissa here, take some minutes, and then you'll close, and then you'll open up your regularly scheduled school board meeting.
I agree with Kevin, and I would add just a request that we keep the high school options agenda item so that the results of the work session can be summarized for the
Right.
people who can only attend the
Yes.
school board.
Yep.
And then you can check with Hank right now and see if he can be available.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay, great, thanks, Hank.
No problem.
And I know this is very nitpicky, but, you know, motions are made, or propose an action or make decisions, and so to move things forward, just would keep it very clean if we made those motions, we seconded them, we said this is the motion that we're doing, so that we know, so that people can read it and know this wasn't just a conversation, so I'm just gonna, and I know I'm very nitpicky, but just for the future.
Would you like the motion?
No,
Okay.
but just next time, I know, I'm a big
Okay.
meeting, okay. All right, thank you, that was great, all right, 6, okay. All right, with that, we will move along the high school options agenda item, and perhaps you can talk a little bit about I know we already talked about the Bartlett-Jackson joint meeting, but I'm just wondering if anything came up about sports or extracurriculars and our relationship with Bartlett at that meeting.
There was discussion about sports, I was the last night, the one before, and just the one before is when we talked about that they're sending kids to the common middle school for sports programs because of lack of participation at Bartlett Middle School. So the sports and extracurricular activities is Bartlett's having the same problems that everyone's having with the declining enrollment. You have less kids that are coming out for extracurricular activities. So Bartlett is looking more and more to where they can provide a program. You know, they have dialogue common and they have a program with common as well. So, which would also include our middle school kids as well. So.
Okay, maybe we could put that on the agenda for the future, because one of the things I think we spoke about was, I think our select people pay a certain amount of money to the Bartlett rec, and then we pay a certain amount, either in tuition or
So
somehow.
in the town budget, it used to be $6,000. It might still be $6,000 a year. The town pays to be part of the Bartlett recreation program. So Jackson residents, Jackson kids are by that agreement are part of the, by default, part of the Bartlett rec program.
Okay.
No one's out. So.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else? Anyone have any questions or anything? No? Okay.
The only other thing, Jerry, recommended, just put the tuition contract between Bartlett and Jackson on every agenda, just so that it's in our mind, and if the board has anything that you'd like to kind of put in your tickler file
Yeah.
to bring up at that meeting, it'll be a standing agenda.
That on our
On the
Bartlett Jackson joint.
Okay. Yeah. Can you make sure that the algebra and the extracurriculars and sports are on that agenda, please?
That meeting will be in September.
Okay, we're in the home stretch here. We have here, I just wanted everyone to have a policy on the agenda format and agenda preparation and dissemination. One thing I want folks to think about is making sure we're getting the agenda out and how we want to do that. Thank you, Aaron. I think you got the agenda out through the e-news, which was fantastic. And you raised a good point, which is that we have certain ways that we get it out that are reliable. They get out that way through the SEU website and things like that. I had a number of people. It was probably the most contact I had with folks about any topic this month was, can you please share it out through Facebook and the e-news? So I wanted to just raise that for folks and just have it on your radar that, and part of it is we have a long meeting tonight, so I don't want to go too into detail about this, but perhaps we can just talk about it at a future meeting to save time tonight.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, please do.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
As a courtesy,
Yes.
we provide the minutes and the upcoming agenda to the Jackson E-News and to whichever Facebook page most relevant, to supplement the official channels that we provide information through.
Second. Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, that's a great way to frame that, because now I'm in support of that. It makes one, out of courtesy, it's like, we'll do it if we can, if it doesn't happen, don't come back to us and say we didn't do our job right. That's
And
good.
it usually gets out, but there may be a case where it doesn't due to an unforeseen circumstance.
Yes, and I think that's great, because I heard what you said, which is that obviously we can't do it all the time, but we get it to the places that we're required to, but as much as we can do that, that's great. And part of it is I want to set that culture that we're trying, we want to be that, and I think people will appreciate that. So thank you, that was awesome.
Can we vote?
Yes, please vote. Are you all in favor? Thank you. You don't get tired of that time. Okay, last item, we have G here, election policy. Do we have a motion to send this to policy committee to develop
I make a
election
motion
policy?
to send.
I'll second that.
Second. All in favor of that, to send that to the policy committee? Okay, to bring it back. Okay, and then the only other thing was this idea here.
Yeah, so we have consistently, time after time, had to consider not using, going outside our policy, which is certainly within our authority to do. But when you have to consistently do that, maybe you should change your policy so that you don't have to do that every time. And the thought was maybe we come up with a hard to fill and retain policy so that so we don't have to go outside of our policy that it's already in place. So when we do this, we need to offer more money to a potential candidate that we do that. But one of the things that Kevin has always mentioned, and Jess has mentioned before, when we do those things, what is the verbal effect from doing that? In other words, what does it do to our staff? What does it do to our budget? And how do we accommodate that? And every board in the entire country is under these kind of pressures and to try to do so. So these conversations have been going on for a while. And I've had conversations with some of the selectmen about this, how do we have a comprehensive view about this task. And one of the things that myself and Frank Fuchsia have been talking about is we should take a look at what, if we were to pay all of our employees in this town, from our school staff to our road crew, to our police department, to our fire, if we were to offer them a wage comparable with some of the highest wages in the state, what would that do directly to our tax rates so that we can look at that? Because if you raise this, starting salary for one position, you're likely going to have to raise it for everyone, which is also going to have an effect on everyone's salary that you currently have. But if the idea is to retain these people anyway, it's something that we need to start considering and be proactive on. So the first thing that we can do is kind of prioritize how the town wants to spend its tax dollars is if we could give a snapshot of if we pay all of our employees the most that we could, here's what it's going to do to your taxes. In other words, this is your $400,000 home, you find out $800,000 home. This is what your taxes are going to look like if we did that. That way we don't have to have that ripple effect and that compression effect of, geez, we just raised this staff member's salary, now we have to raise this person's salary as well. We can't afford to do all that, or we don't know that that's going to do. We do that ahead of time, and then the community can come and look at that and say, yeah, I'm in favor of that. No, it's going to, we can't afford that, so now we have to start changing priorities so that we can do that. Because to me, the most important thing that we have in this town is the value of our employees. And that we should be doing everything we can do to not only retain them, but when they retire, or we listen to other communities, that we have the ability to get new employees back.
So what will it take to do that?
I think that we want to have a coordination with the select board to kind of, where we have a meeting with them to kind of to go over this information eventually. Probably sooner than later. I think it's a place where we start would be for us to identify all of our staff positions and what the composition and safes are, and I'll approach the select board and ask them to do the same, and then we kind of start reconciling things on that.
That'd be great. So maybe you could start there with that, and then do you want a motion to have the policy committee look at a hard to fill, hard to retain policy?
Sure. I would make a motion. I think those things are separate, but they inform each other, right? Because the goal is that you don't, maybe you don't do the hard to fill, hard to retain involved, but that will take longer. So yes, I make a motion for policy committee, whoever.
All in favor?
I think you said personnel.
Oh, for
It's so hard to obtain, that's our
Oh,
policy, it's a personnel committee.
Well, typically anything that goes towards hiring, recruiting,
Yeah.
wages, all those
Oh,
things,
all goes to
goes
personnel.
to personnel, they make a recommendation to the policy committee.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, that's all Jerry, so, good. All right, Jerry. Okay, just last thing, future meetings. June 13th is a meeting.
It is?
It is it's not
June
a
13th is an SAU 9.
SAU 9 meeting. They're tremendously helpful to learn about things. I cannot make that meeting because we have graduation, but is there, I wanted to just make sure that people knew that there was a meeting there. I know you can usually make it, if you can, that would be great. I cannot make that one, but it's on here. Our next meeting is June 17th. We'll do our work session at 5 o'clock, and then the regular meeting at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
And then June 6th, I'm going backwards here, there's the joint board meeting at 6 o'clock. And except for the ones that are our official meetings, they'll be at the Professional Development Center down in Conway.
Just want to say, I think you're doing a great job as chair. It's not an easy position. Dealing with people like me is not easy, and I think you're doing a great job.
Jerry said that because I told him today, I said, Jerry, I don't know about this. So thank you very much. And I know this was long. Melinda, they won't be all this.
No,
are we better at this?
we are going back to hour-long
Yes,
meetings.
we're going back to hour-long meetings. We'll get better.
Don't believe it. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
So you guys want to sit down?
Wait, yes, comments. Yes, are there any citizens' comments?
Derek, you want to go
Would
first?
you like this first?
You go.
Okay, so anyway, please let me know if I'm speaking out of turn or if I should have spoken earlier on a couple of things. So thank you for the meeting tonight. It was very informative.
Can I
And
just have your name, please?
Jennifer Fribble, thank you, I'm a Jackson resident. So it was really great to see all of the work for the high school listening session. As a parent of a student in high school at Freiburg Academy, I'd love to be able to share our experience through that process when the time comes to talk further. And then also just talking about the extracurricular activities at JDES, Bartlett. One question that I would encourage the board to investigate is, while there is declining enrollment and there are a variety of factors, I would ask the board to look at how the information about extracurricular activities is presented to students and their families.
Yes.
It's been our experience that all of the options were not clearly provided to families, and it was sort of, it didn't give us enough information to even have conversations with our kids about what the choices were for the activities that they might participate in. And I think that some of those conversations might generate additional interest. And so I would just encourage some questions, because he's not currently a middle school student, but I would encourage questions around how is that information being gathered. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mike?
I'll be really quick. I'm sorry to keep you here longer. Mike DeFlow, Jackson resident. I was part of the group that asked Victoria to come and talk about middle school math. We talked about that like 3 hours ago. And so I just wanted to maybe shed a little light on that. And that's just some informal inquiries were made to Bartlett, and we had heard that there was a possibility of putting a part-time math specialist in along with the full-time math educator for next year. And in those informal inquiries, there was some conflicting information back from Bartlett. One source said, yes, that's in the budget, that's something that's going to happen. Another person said, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. And these are both people that would have seen that budget, read it, looked at it, have known it was happening. And so I realized that I'm not in Bartlett. I'm not asking for clarification from this board. I just want to make sure that as a first step, we want to make sure people are aware of that. Because, and also aware of that, but also more than that, to really strongly voice our desire to have an in-person math teacher available. I found out this morning, my daughter found out out that she actually is in that, going to be in the accelerated program next year, and came home and said, I'm so excited unless it's online, in which case I'm not going to do it. And that breaks my heart in an underrepresented field of females, math and sciences, to have a 12-year-old come home and say, I'm not going to do it. It's a sample size of one, right? So I'm not making any bold statements here, but that's tough. So I would really, I'm just trying to get that word out. I'm also going to contact Bartlett in a more official capacity as well. I think Joe is great. He's so responsive. The board is as well. So I'm going to do that. I just want to make that aware, and so people understood why Victoria was going to be here to talk tonight. Hopefully, I gave some clarity to that.
Thanks, Ben. Can you just clarify for people in the room who may not be familiar, when you were referring to the one FTE position and a part-time position, what's the relevance of those two positions to the comment that you're making?
Oh, yeah, certainly. So the idea was, well, I guess we could go to Dr. Schmitz as well, is that there's a full-time math teacher, or my understanding, right, was that there was a full-time math teacher who would teach the 8th grade illustrious math, and then for students that were ready for pre-algebra, there was a person who was interested in taking on one class for pre-algebra. So as a part-time, I don't know if that's 20% or what that would be, but that was what we had heard. And I don't know, we got some mixed messages as to whether that was true or not. The other thing I was going to say very quickly, thank you for bringing that up about disseminating information at the middle school level for sports. The students that do participate in sports and go to Kennett, I don't know if people know this, it is a substantial amount of school that they miss in order to make that happen. So if you think about getting on a bus, going 40 minutes down the road to get there at 3 o'clock, 5 days a week, that's a block. That's a full academic block every single day of the week that you're missing. And that's a hardship for some students can do that, but a lot of students can't. And so I think we just need to be aware of that. I think there are creative solutions that are there. I think we just need to encourage those creative solutions. Thank you.
That was really helpful. Thank you both for speaking up. Thank you. Anyone else?
Just quickly, this is a half question, half comment. Is the math situation part of the hard to fill, hard to retain discussion? Because we don't have that driving the Lamborghini curriculum that we just committed to?
Correct, yeah. Staffing is always finding the right person. Yes.
But we are making plans.
What's that?
We are making plans.
Well, we're just bringing up the hard, it seems like we're talking about it for a totally different kind of role, but actually it's for instruction staff as well.
With that, did you have a motion, sir?
I would love to make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Thank you all. Thank you.